Hi guys, welcome to MabelSoft. So today we are going to see the demo on um Snowflake. Okay, so before that, just I want to introduce myself. I am Vijay, and I'm having 11 years of experience into the different warehousing technologies. Like I have been into the SAP, and I have been into the HANA warehousing part, and I have been worked as an Snowflake, and even I am the Snowflake certified consultant. So from the past 4 years, I have been with the Snowflake, and so this is my seventh batch regarding the Snowflake. So this training is purely based upon the Snowflake certification as well. So the persons who are interested to take part in the Snowflake certification can join these sessions. Okay, so it's a training come real-time experience kind of course this is. So here just I want to walk through what are the things that we're going to cover in the upcoming sessions. Okay, so yeah, so when you see the course duration is for 20 days, and the course content here, you can see the introduction to Snowflake, Snowflake environment setup, Snowflake architecture, caching, and Snowflake data warehousing. So when you see the introduction to Snowflake here, I'm going to see various, what are the various cloud platforms, Snowflake editions, key features, and data lifecycle. And for the Snowflake environment setup, we are creating the Snowflake trial account, Snowflake web console introduction, web console limitations, login to Snowflake from client, and CLI, creating databases and the tables, and introduction to Snowflake data. Okay. So how we can create a database and table as part of the introduction on the sample data that we're going to see as part of the Snowflake environment. Okay, and so I'm walking through the next slide. And here you can see the clustering in Snowflake and what are the clusters, how they are being used in Snowflake. So apart from the clusters part, we are going to see the query processing in Snowflake, micro partitioning, applying clusters in Snowflake tables. So some deep dive into this, like how clusters works, improve performance without applying the clustering, manual reclustering, and how to choose clustering key. So apart from that, we are going to see the warehouse, virtual warehouse. When we say the virtual warehouse, it's a heart, we can say, where we are going to processing take place. So we are going to see how we can going to create a virtual warehouse and the scaling policies. So moving on, here we are going to see performance tuning and database characteristics. So performance tuning in Snowflake, how query optimization works, concurrency control, how to update transaction working. Okay, so coming to the main topics here, we're going to see loading data into Snowflake. So what are the formats? What are the functions that we're going to copy from one server to the Snowflake, and how we are going to set up the configuration. So what are the types of internal storage? These are the things we're going to cover when loading and discussing about how we are loading the data into the Snowflake. Okay, and apart from that, here we have internal stage, uploading the data in using the web console, local system to Snowflake, and downloading from Snowflake to local system, load data using name stage object. So these are the things we're going apart from loading data. And here you can see the load data from AWS. So we have a S3 bucket in Snowflake, how we are going to load. So that we are going to see how creating the AWS account, creating an S3 bucket, policies, role, and integration, uploading data to S3 using the web console and the CLI. And we are going to see the query is from Snowflake, loading data from S3 to Snowflake, unload data to S3, other options to copy zip files. Apart from that, here in this sessions, we are going to see the how we are loading the data from Azure as well. So Azure, in sense, creating Azure account, connecting Snowflake to Azure blob storage. Okay, so these are the querying Parquet data from Azure, load Parquet data to Snowflake, uploading Parquet data to Azure, copying command options. Okay, so here we have is something like Snowpipe option in Snowflake. So what are its configuration with AWS, Snowpipe status and error checks. Okay, so these are the part of Snowpipe in Snowflake we're going to see, and the data sharing, how we're going to share the data sharing in Snowflake that we're going to see. And time travel in Snowflake, this comes as part of the metadata concept in Snowflake, and clone feature in Snowflake, how clone feature works, table swap in Snowflake, and data sampling in Snowflake. So row versus block sampling, and sampling demo, clone versus sampling. Okay, and scheduling task in Snowflake. So those are the things we are going to cover as part of the Snowflake. And moving to the next slide here, we're going to the key highlights that we're going to see. Uh, so we are going to see, I will try my best to have the SAP data and how we can load the SAP data into Snowflake using the HVR tool that we're going to see. Before that, we're going to see how the architecture takes place, that we're going to cover. And let's try, because SAP data is critical to bring out the SAP data to Snowflake, right? So like that is the licensed one. I will try to load the sample data. If not, I will show you how we can load what is the process behind that. Okay, and data flow using the HPR complete architecture comes under, and discussion on real-time scenarios. So this course is completely fueled on real-time scenarios, because we are going to take a sample data. The sample data would be a real-time scenario, because for example, this course is covered based taking one client as a demo for us, and taking how the client organization would be. For example, the client, if at all the client is an automobile client, or a chemical industry client, or an real estate client. So what are the different branches of this? In that particular organization, we're going to take a sample data from that organization, and how we can get that information into the Snowflake. This is what we're going to, everything would be a real time. Okay. And we're going to see a use cases. These are the things we are going to cover in this session. Okay, so moving forward, we are aware that Snowflake is an what is a Snowflake? Snowflake is it's a data warehouse as a service, right? You can deploy the Snowflake on any of the client providers, or we can say that we can integrate Snowflake with any of the cloud providers, right? So Snowflake data warehousing solution is compositing on the cloud. So cloud providers, something like we can say Azure Cloud, Google Cloud Platform, AWS. Okay, and even we have an SAP Cloud as well. So these are the various cloud providers on that we are going to integrate with the Snowflake. Okay, so when we see the Snowflake architecture, so how we are going to achieve this? So if you see the Snowflake architecture, we come into the picture what exactly how the Snowflake works. So in this demo, I'm going to show you an architecture, deep dive into that. Here you can see we have a three-tier, we can say it's a three-tier architecture Snowflake. Okay, so at the bottom level, we have a storage layer, and the second layer, we have a compute layer, and the third layer that we are doing, the topmost layer, that is the service layer. So service layer is the brain of Snowflake. Okay, so whenever users want to retrieve some information, first when he triggers a query, the query comes into the service layer. Service layer will look into the what exactly the scenario, what he's looking out for, that he will retrieve either from the virtual warehousing 1, 2, or 3. So underneath we have a different storage process from where that virtual layer picks the data and gives the information to the client or the user, we can say. For example, at the bottom we have an data which is coming from the AWS. Okay, we have a data coming from the Azure, or we have a data which is coming from the SAP. So we have a 3 different clients here, or else the one client with 3 different data sets. Okay, so whenever the data is coming, whenever we want to load the data from AWS, initially we have a storage layer. In the storage layer, the AWS data will be stored as an S3 data, S3 buckets. And from there, on top of that, we have a computation layer. We can say compute layer. In the compute layer, we have a warehousing. So warehousing is something that where we can data will be processed. Okay, it's in virtual warehousing. Okay, we can say. So physically it doesn't contain any data. The processing will happen at this point, Okay, and whatever the query will be written at this point, and whatever the information that they want to fetch the info they want to fetch, which from the S3 bucket that will be fetched, and based upon the user requirement, that information will be processed through the service layer from there to the client. This is how the things happen. Similarly, the data which is present in the Azure, when we load into the Snowflake, that will be stored in the storage layer as part of blob. Okay, so from the blob, again, the virtual layer triggers whatever it writes a query, and whatever the data that is being written, that is being written based upon the user requirement or the client requirement. So that information will be processed to the via service layer to the client. Similarly, the SAP data as well. Okay, so here we have to understand how the once the data has been loaded, either it may be AWS or Azure or any layer, any databases, once the data has been loaded into the storage layer, here in the storage layer, automatically the data will be stored as a columnar storage. The data will be compressed automatically, and the data will be partitioned automatically. Okay, so what I said, the first point is the compression. The data will be compressed, and the second is the data. Once the data is compressed and partitioned, the second stage, and then it will be stored as a columnar storage. By default, it will be stored as a columnar storage. So if at all we don't want the compressed data, if we don't want the compression to be happen at the storage level, then we have an explicitly we can change that as by unselecting the checkbox as a compression. Okay, that we can happen at the storage level. And these are the virtual warehousing. So based upon the requirement that we can define the virtual warehousing. See, one client is not specific to the one database, right? I mean to say that one client will be having the multiple ways of different source systems, either maybe AWS or maybe Azure or maybe SAP. Okay, so this is the typical architecture of a client where the client uses the three different source systems, and we have a three virtual warehouses. On top of that, we have a different clients. Okay, I hope you understand this architecture. So this is what the architecture of Snowflake.